Okay, so now that we have looked at the perform integrated change control process in the 6th edition of the PMBOK, let's go through the inputs, outputs, tools, and techniques one more time, starting obviously with the inputs. We have the project management plan, and I like to draw that familiar, what you call it, file folder that represents the project management plan, because you know what, there's lots of different plans in there, and so we got to look at, well, what was planned before we know what to change or why we want to change it. Also, too, there's going to be lots of different documents that we're going to be referencing and looking at and comparing, you know, schedules and Gantt charts and lessons learned. All those kind of things are also going to be of value. We also need to know, well, what's going on. So any kind of graph or reports that are out there, you know, presentations, however, or whatever method that we're using to help demonstrate what is going on, and that is our work performance, and usually in some kind of report format. So those different inputs. And then also, too, we have to have the change request itself, right? I mean, how do we know what we want to look at or change without some request for change? So I'll just kind of put some arrows here and indicate that we're looking for something to change. Now, also, we are a product of the environment that we're working in. So that is, again, I draw the little buildings representing the enterprise in which we're working in and that environment. So the enterprise environmental factors, as well as there's going to be templates, right? If we have this request for change, and actually I'm going to make that C a little nicer, we might have like a template. We might have a website that we might enter, or we just have a certain way we do it. Like in our organization, maybe everything's done by email, or maybe you present yourself at a change control meeting with your change advisory board. That doesn't matter. However you want to do it, let's just kind of throw some binders up here with maybe some templates and whatever the case might be. But these are your organizational process assets. All right, those are your inputs, and we will now move on to the tools and techniques. Well, you're probably going to have to meet to discuss this. So you might have a change advisory board, or you might, as a project manager, have to be part of that, or you might not. It depends how it's structured. Maybe it's all done virtually. Maybe it's a conference call. However the case, you're going to probably have plenty of meetings to talk it over, discuss it. You're also going to be leveraging those people and their experiences and their knowledge. You know, if I have somebody who knows the technical part, I'm going to include them. If I know somebody who has, in fact, done plenty of these in the past, then I'm going to include them as well. But that is generally just referred to as our expert judgment. So that judgment can come in many different formats. It's just sort of that things that we know, and it's going to help kind of grease the engine and keep everything running and performing. Now, we might have various different tools that are generally used. So I'll kind of draw a wrench, maybe even a hammer or something like that. But what we have is some change control tools. Like, what we really mean is not necessarily hardware tools, but more like systems that are in place to help us, maybe a workflow that we go to a website or something that pushes it along. We get the approvals, people are signing off, and it goes to the next person, whatever the case might be. But there's going to be different change control tools that organizations might have to assist them along the way. Additionally, we're going to have to make sense of the changes and figure out, well, looking at the data, and we're going to analyze it. Well, what if we should or should not change? You know, like, what's the alternative if we don't change? What if we do nothing? What if we do, you know, any of these 3 options, 4 options? You know, what is it going to entail? What's going to happen? And any way that we're going to look at the information and make sense of it, well, that's what we're talking about, data and analysis. And also then, too, well, we got to decide, right, if, in fact, we're going to go about doing it, and we're thinking about it, and then eventually maybe we need to vote or say no, whatever the case may be. But, or maybe, you know, there's other ways to decide. Maybe we just go with, you know, one person's choice because of whatever the circumstances might be. But eventually, we must make a decision. So decision making is another tool and technique of this process. Now, on to the outputs. We have a few different outputs. Obviously, one being the change request. And we had, at the start, the request to begin with, And now it's gone through its cycle and it's either been approved, which then of course needs to go where it needs to go to be implemented, or I guess you can argue, it's denied, and usually then it's sent back and continues this cycle, or however you want to look at it. But really we generally just say the approved change request as your output, and then that also, as I said, is going to update the plans, however many plans that affects. So anywhere in your project management plan, I'm sorry, my folders are all messed up here, but any updates to them, as well as the various different documents that are also reflected. So if we need to change the schedule or we need to change anything else, so here I'll draw a little schedule, a little Gantt chart. So those project documents are also going to be updated, including what we learned from going through this process. So that's a quick look and review in the Crowd Training's 6th edition PM City course on Perform Integrated Change Control.